As leaders beat drum of war and on to the star.
Raila, Uhuru now target each other's stronghold. But let's begin with the Standard newspaper as usual.
Yes, and well, the headline on the Standard is "Fear Me Not," Raila tells Central Kenya. And of course, this is as he continues on his campaign trail. And he says, "I always refer to Uhuru as my younger brother because of our past." So, of course, appealing to the people of Kiambu and basically letting them know that there should be no fear. There are rumors and there are those who think that possibly if Raila became president, then there would be an attack on certain communities. But he came out very clear to say that that is not the case.
And still on the front page there, CJ warns IEBC on printing ballots because Maraga argues that many cases challenging candidates cleared by the electoral agency, it may be premature to start printing ballot papers now. Remember, he said that they are still dealing with disputes arising from the party primaries. So how is it that IEBC could already be printing ballot papers?
All right. And, well, of course, that's a story that we are expecting to continue, given that we still don't have the ruling of the printing papers by Al Ghurair. But there you go. That's another story that, of course, we are following up on. Still on the front page, Uhuru and Ruto mock NASA leaders over their age. And I remember even listening to one particular soundbite where he was saying one of the NASA leaders was already in parliament when Ruto was in first form, was in Form 1.
Form 1. I mean, and it's quite an interesting one there. But let's move on to health, Mike. And it's an interesting one on page 5 here. Agency warns on a faulty HIV test kit. Now, the World Health Organization says that most of the gadgets being used by individuals to test themselves for the virus are defective. Now, remember, just about 2 months ago, Kenya launched the PrEP kit for HIV patients, and together with that came the HIV self-testing kit. But apparently, many of them are faulty, many of them giving false results, so and a situation there causing alarm.
All right, and an interesting picture there, which was doing rounds on social media yesterday, is a picture apparently from Nyahururu, where, well, there are questions whether it is actually snowing in Nyahururu, but I believe it just might be hail, but it looked very interesting. And of course, Kenyans being Kenyans had to stop and do their selfies and take pictures, and there were rounds, online regarding that. But there you go.
All right, and moving on, just before we move on from that, on page 4, we have Justice Ndungu allies fellow judges to back safe abortion. So the Supreme Court now wants the Constitution changed to allow cases such as expectant women with HIV to have abortions.
All right, and well, that's what we have for you on the Standard this morning. Let's now take a look at the Daily Nation, where the headline is "Danger as Leaders Beat Drum of War," and NCIC identifies counties with highest likelihood of election-related clashes. And of course, this is one that we have to keep our eye on.
Absolutely. And when you take a look at the front page of the Daily Nation, there is a map of Kenya there with the possible violence hotspots that have been identified, especially by the NCIC. So among those counties are Turkana County, Trans Nzoia County, Bungoma County, West Pokot, Uasin Gishu. So many of them marked in red. About 20 counties or so they're being marked as the hotspots in the general election.
All right, on to matters corruption on page 9. Excuse me. And Anglo leasing deals got state approval. So, of course, these are some of those stories that sometimes in the newsroom, Gadara accuses us of not following up.
Right.
So there you go. Contract got nod from Permanent Secretary and AG Wako says Mudhaura, and that is to do with Anglo leasing. So in case you thought that that matter had been laid to rest, well, it is still going on.
All right, and let's move on to page 14 for our usual cartoon there on the Nation. And this morning we have, what is this? It looks like a government office which has been closed, and the sign there says "out for campaigns." And we have lecturers and nurses standing outside the government office asking for money for CBA, both for lecturers and the nurses. But this seemingly painting a picture that, there is no goodwill from politicians now, because most of them have their heads buried in their campaigns. And so when we have nurses and lecturers asking for their CBA to be implemented, it may be quite a long time till we see that.
And somebody had actually mentioned and said maybe the strikes are mistimed because given that they are actually a political kind of conversation, this would be the wrong time given that majority of these guys are out for campaigns. But then again, there is no good time or bad time to have your rights addressed. So interesting cartoon right there.
All right, so let's move on to the Star newspaper as we wind up with our paper review. And on the front page there, Raila and Uhuru now target each other's strongholds, with the two main candidates now seeking what they're terming as swing votes ahead of the polls. Remember, yesterday we had Raila Odinga in Kiambu County and Uhuru Kenyatta in Machakos County. And so an interesting campaign trail going on there, just 33 days to the election.
And I think that would be something we could actually highlight as a difference this time, because we see the leaders crisscrossing each other's quote-unquote strongholds, as opposed to when they would concentrate on just the areas that they feel they have majority support and totally ignore the other areas. So that, I think, is a good thing, because then that means maybe there is more political tolerance. And remember that it always starts at the top.
All right, and moving on as we wind up on page 11 of the paper, maize yield to fall by 25% due to invading armyworm and drought, says CS Bet. Now, this is another issue that is expected to further make more difficult the food situation in the country, but we'll be waiting to see what the government has in store.
That's what we have for you on the dailies this morning, and we are going to take a short break. When we come back, it's time for the Dawn Debate, where we look at certain areas, different areas. So do stay with us right here on Morning Express. Later on, we'll also have the newsroom, where we shall look at some of the stories that have made headlines and how we have covered them. Remember, you are welcome to participate in all these conversations, and we shall give you the Twitter handles as we continue. For now, we take a short break.
All right.
This is KTN News.